Welcome everybody to the glorious episode of The Signal Caller with your host Dwayne Douglas, along with Solo Lopez, most notorious football voice in the Twitter sphere, if you will. If you haven't blocked him by now, you get some good insight. But anyway, the Raiders searching for a quarterback in the first round. They missed one last year. Brock Bowers is great, but they did miss one last year, and I don't, I'm not. It's not Brock Bowers' fault. It's more, the Raiders winning a lot of meaningless games in the end of the season that could have landed them Penix or possibly J.J. McCarthy, but now, or even Daniels, who knows? But right now they're in that situation. Now they're fourth according to Tankathon, right? They're fourth right now with a quarterback, with a team on the top who has a quarterback already. So that's actually a decent spot for him, but we'll see. We'll talk about some quarterbacks currently in the NFL, and we'll also talk about some quarterbacks who are in college right now, who we think our thoughts about them, going forward with the Raiders. Solo, how you doing today?
Good, man. Just coming off that loss today against Miami. I don't think a lot of people expected them to go play well against Miami. We've been kind of in a brutal season. We haven't really made any time in this situation to go into a deep dive of the regular season, and so it's kind of a situation where we find ourselves in the same position where we've been in last year, but hopefully, this time the fruit that bears is an actual quarterback. And I wouldn't even necessarily go out to say that they missed on a quarterback. It was almost they just decided not to go after a quarterback.
I think sure. You're right.
I think there were definitely avenues that they could have exhausted in order to try to move up for a quarterback. And now that we've seen four of them who have been play really well during different stretches of the season, it might have been a mistake now, considering how bad teams are now and what teams are looking for a quarterback going into this offseason.
So when you see this show, it's Tuesday morning, but right now, currently when we're recording, the Bengals and Chargers are going back and forth like Ali and Frazier. So if our eyes go a little bit to the side, we're not going crazy. We're just watching Jamar Chase do Jamar Chase things in the fourth quarter of this game. Let's start off with Bo Nix, and as we look back at the last draft class and kind of go forward to this one. So thank you for the tweet about me hanging in there with Bo Nix when everybody was telling me he was ass. But my thing was this with Bo Nix is like, I wrote down 15 rules after I was wrong on Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down 15 rules of me evaluating quarterbacks, and the first one is take the emotion out of it. So I think people hate Bo Nix for whatever reason. Y'all hate him so much that you can't really evaluate what he could add to a football team. Leadership, pinpoint accuracy within 20 yards. Can actually, he's not a statue back there. He can move like crazy. People said that, hey, all he did is throw screens in college. Well, guess what? He has a head coach who likes to throw screens and throws the ball into the seams in Sean Payton. So it fits, and just because it's a scheme and it's not him going out there like Josh Allen just doing all that crazy stuff, it doesn't mean that he can't be effective in the National Football League.
Yeah, I got news for people. Sean Payton won a Super Bowl this way, and he had one of the most prolific passers in NFL history in Drew Brees. And it's not like they were out there just throwing vertical seam every single play. That's not the way their offense ran in that situation. Mm-hmm. He relied very heavily on timing and accuracy. Basically everything before the 17-yard line. Before 17 yards, they were the most lethal offense in maybe NFL history. Yep. It's just that was the relatability of their offense. And we talked about it in our episode of the Signal Callers that if he goes to Sean Payton, it could be the best situation for him to go to. But even though we said that we thought he was going to be a first-round quarterback, we did not necessarily feel like there were going to be 6 quarterbacks going inside the first 12 picks. That's what ended up happening, and it stands to reason that those guys were all correct in doing so because of the fact that they've all been, 4 of them who have played have all been successful at different points of the season. And
Yeah.
Bo Nix today literally just went for I think he missed 5 passes and he had 4 touchdowns and over 300 yards, and they demolished Atlanta, and they've got 6 wins right now.
Yeah.
Most people thought Denver was a joke. Although some of our local beat reporters thought they were stupid, quote unquote stupid, for taking Bo Nix at 12, saying that who was gonna reach on Bo Nix, who was gonna be the dumb team and be the donkey, if you will, quote unquote. That we're gonna take Bo Nix. That seems to be working out now, because I would say if he's not in the lead for Rookie of the Year right now, then he's at least up there now, because his last 7 games have been exceptional.
Yeah, he's played very well, taking care of the football, getting the ball out. And if you watch the entirety of the game where the Broncos played at the Kansas City Chiefs, I was very impressed with Sean Payton and that they had a perfect 4-minute drive. That was it was a textbook 4-minute drive. And when he had to make the long 3rd and 11 throw, he hit he stepped up in the pocket and hit Sutton for a 15-yard first down. And it really was like, you saw the Chiefs thought at that point the game was over, but obviously people cannot block on field goals anymore. I'm seeing more field goals blocked on game winners that I've ever seen in my entire life.
We just saw it today with Green Bay and Chicago.
Same thing. So it is what it is. But like I said, I was like, Bo Nix, I said, solid quarterback, and if he's just solid, that does not spell great things for the Raiders. I'm just saying, because because they already snapped the streak already. So we don't have that streak anymore.
You can't rely on we beat them 8 times in a row anymore.
No, you can't say that anymore.
Yeah. You can't just say that and be like, Broncos are terrible because they can't beat the Raiders. Well, they dominated the Raiders. They thoroughly embarrassed the Raiders.
They held back. Yeah. They held back in the game too.
In the fourth quarter, they were just running the clock out.
Yes, they really could have really smashed the hell out of the Raiders. Yeah. So that's a Bo Nix story. Like I said, in one of my 15 rules of evaluating quarterbacks, I do evaluations after season's over. I don't live one. You can't live game by game. You gotta take the entirety of the season. So let's go to Caleb Williams now. Caleb Williams, first pick overall, and I think the one thing that I didn't realize, I think it was. Is it Emmanuel Ocho with the glasses and always with the funny takes and everything on Fox? Is that the guy with the?
The former linebacker from Texas. He's on Fox Sports 1.
Yeah, I think it was him. But he said that if it's not him, you guys can look in the comments and correct me. But he said that when Shane Waldron got fired, all these former Seahawk dudes texting him said, I could have told y'all from the get-go it wasn't going to work. So I did not realize that the vitriol that former players had for him, but I thought they played.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I thought they played well. I mean, that could have been Carroll holding that thing together, but Waldron he's not the offensive coordinator anymore. The Bears lost again. The Bears lost again today. I didn't think it was really. I thought they actually looked better today. They actually ran the ball a lot more today to help Caleb in this whole situation, but. This is going to be, you're going to put yourself in a position now where you're going to have a third play caller, because coming into next year for Caleb Williams already, and this is only going to be a second year.
And potentially a second coach.
Yes. Yes, it will be.
Which we have discussed it in the past. I don't understand how Matt Eberflus got this year. I think that putting Caleb Williams, your number 1 overall pick, in pairing with, even if you give him who I thought at the time, and I was clearly wrong, it did not work out in Chicago, who I thought was a good offensive play caller. Yeah. I really liked what he did in Seattle. I really liked what Shane Waldron did in Seattle. I was a big fan. So we'll see what happens on his career moving forward. But to pair what I think was a lame duck coach with a number 1 overall pick, I think is an organizational mistake. Yeah. I think that the Raiders are in a similar position now, that if you're going to draft your franchise quarterback, which a lot of people now think they are. Granted, I'm not even 100% there. I'm not 100% sure that they will, just because we're at the point now where we can't give the Raiders the benefit of the doubt to be a smart organization, because they haven't been.
Yeah.
But if that's the route they decide to go, and they know they're organizationally committed to drafting a quarterback, bringing a guy in who is going to be on a lame duck year, basically, for a coach, It's just a mistake, and it's a mistake that the Raiders can make if they keep Antonio Pierce. It was a mistake for Caleb Williams or for the Bears to do this with Matt Eberflus and Caleb Williams. I just don't think he's going to be back, and I don't think he's presented anything that he's going to be very good in that. I think he lost for the 40th time tonight. 40. I think he has 15 wins and 40 losses as the Bears coach. You were given Caleb Williams. You were given organizational pieces on defense. You were given an offense. You were given all these things, and you're just not good enough. And I think that's the conversation a lot of Raider fans are trying to have with themselves right now about Antonio Pierce. But it's just the fact that you're just not good enough. And Matt Eberflus is clearly not good enough in Chicago. That should be a prime destination for a Brian Flores or for a Bobby Slowick. Looks really a lot of people like Jesse Minter. A lot of people like, and obviously the top dog on everybody's literally everybody's list is Ben Johnson. And so that should be a prime candidate for an organization to go after for Ben Johnson in that situation, to give him Caleb Williams in that offense, that running game, and to help him shape, Caleb Williams and to maximize his potential. So the Eberflus thing is crazy. Caleb hasn't played great, but he hasn't been supported a whole lot with a good offensive line. He's been up and down. You've seen the flashes of his brilliance, which we all saw in college. But structurally wise, you're not insulated with a lot of protection from the play calling standpoint, from the head coaching standpoint, from the offensive line standpoint. And so, I still obviously believe in Caleb Williams. I know everybody else, there's so many people that do. But right now he's struggling to put together a lot of what made him the number one overall pick. And granted, he is the quarterback of the Bears, which is not notoriously a quarterback-friendly organization. So we'll see if they can get it right. I think Matt Eberflus is in the final days of his job. I think he'll be gone on Black Monday in January. So I think that's kind of a writing on the wall situation for his. I think when coaches start firing offensive coordinators in the middle of the season,
it's over.
I think that's generally a telltale sign that you are either on a very short leash yourself, that you are, or you're just doing anything you can to mitigate how bad it looks on you in order to try and save your job. And in Matt Eberflus's case, I just don't think it will.
I think it's 60. I think to me it's 60-40 as far as the blame of Caleb Williams' situation, right, on the offense, on the play caller to him. The play caller has been in the league for a long time, so you have to have a way of getting him those easy throws, and stuff like that. And he just did a really bad job. Caleb looked much better today, but probably a lot of it is because of the run game. They ran the ball a lot more today. That gets the offensive line, even if you don't have a good one, gets them lathered up, get them ready to go.
Yeah,
they're more willing. It's almost like I remember Shaquille O'Neal when he played. He was like, if you want a big dog to play defense, you gotta feed me. I gotta score early. Let those guys engage early in the game with the run game, and then when you ask them to pass, the passing offense looked way better, especially on what should have been the game-winning drive. On that field goal. But I've never seen. I tell you, we were in a space when it happened, and I said it immediately when I saw Santos's or whatever his name is, the kicker for the Bears. The minute I saw his eyes, I was like, oh, he does not want this moment. Like he doesn't want this at all. So
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this goes to their coaching situation. They had 42 seconds, I believe, and 2 timeouts, or 1 or 2 timeouts. They at least had 1 timeout for sure. Yeah. And they just trotted them out there on second down and called the timeout with 3 seconds to go. It's like you are almost obligated to try and get in better yardage when you have 1 timeout left. Like, you don't take those timeouts to the grave. Like, in what capacity could you justify not attempting to get another 15-yard gain right there, another 12-yard gain, even a 7-yard gain, even just running the ball up the middle and just trying to get 4 yards? You turn what essentially is a 46-yard field goal potentially into a sub 40-yard field goal, a 38, 39, or hey, even maybe a 30-yard field goal if you get a really good play out of that. And I just don't understand that type of clock management. We've seen it all year with our team. But that just goes to show you, it's like these guys are just not prepared to be these head coaches. They're just not. Like Matt Eberflus, there's nothing that could show me that in his entire history of coaching anything that tells me that this guy is a good head coach. I felt the same way about Robert Saleh, and a lot of people thought it was a mistake to fire him. I didn't. I don't think he's a good coach. Clearly, they're not a good team, and they really haven't been a good team under Robert Saleh, and they haven't been a good team since they fired him, obviously. But like, I just don't. When these guys get hired, it's just bizarre to me that they continue to be able to get these unearned opportunities. And I understand organizations are going to do what they want to do. They're all private corporations on their individual status, and they're all going to do what they want to do. And they all feel like they have the best, most right answers in this situation. But giving guys like Matt Eberflus 3 years when it's clear he's not very good, or if the Raiders give Pierce another year, it's like the giving Saleh another year and all these things. It's like, Brandon Staley getting 3 years in Los Angeles. Like, these things are they're unbelievable. You can tell, you should be able to tell within 20 games if a guy has something or not. Yeah. Like, a lot of the time you can tell a lot earlier than that. But if a guy goes 15-40, I mean, there's no excuse. You can't have any more justifications to that situation. So, and clock management today was just another issue that we've seen of unprepared and inexperienced coaches that are unprepared, that don't have it. And there's 32 of these jobs. You have the capacity to find the absolute 100% best guy for the job from 31 other organizations. And a lot of these teams just don't. And that's how you end up with Robert Saleh and Matt Eberflus and Marty Morningwig and Antonio Pierce and Josh McDaniels for a second stint. Like, that's how you end up with these guys. They just don't earn it. They don't deserve it.
100%. And I think also you have a situation where you have a general manager. You saw it on Hard Knocks. The general manager and Eberflus played together in college.
Yeah.
Nepotism. Yeah. You got to stop it. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And it's no way to hire the best guy. It's only 32, one of 32. Makes no sense. It was a bad hire from the get go. So, but I thought, like I said, they run the football. They get better down the stretch. I think it's over because he's been so bad in close games. Like, every game has been this, like, every game has just been a heartbreaking, just like, terrible loss for them. That's why I think it's a really appealing job, because if you could just flip that switch on the offense just to get a little bit better and just get Caleb going. Every 4 games you see really good improvement. They could be a team that could possibly be a playoff contender. So we'll see what happens there. But that's kind of the story on the Bears. The Bears are starting over with a new play caller. I don't know if they can save his job. I think it would take a playoff run from him to save his job. I think Eberflus is gonna go, and they're gonna end up paying maybe Ben Johnson $15 million a year as a rookie head coach. I brought up AR because, number one, I just think it's people who are in Twitter Spaces who are just like trying to basically say he's getting sabotaged by his coach. It drives me absolutely crazy. I think good job by Richardson today battling back. They used him in a lot of different plays. He had some really great deep balls. Like, he had some fantastic deep balls today. The one to Pierce, I think he had one. He I think another one to Downs. Like, they scored 28 points today. But this idea that somehow, some way, the head coach is just like not doing stuff on purpose, or just like being really crappy with him. Like, he has been crappy himself. Like, it's okay to realize he's not played a lot of football. Like, he didn't play a lot of games at Arizona. At Florida. At Florida. So, like, I mean, let him have these moments to develop. Like, let him play this season out. There's a good win for them today on the road against the Jets. So good job there. And maybe he can get this going. And they used his running ability as well in the game. That was really nice to see. So good job by them as far as that goes. But so I mean, this whole thing about him and the head coach, who was a very good coach, especially with quarterbacks. Look at what he did with Jalen Hurts. This idea that he's like sabotaging the season because or not calling or a good game for Anthony Richardson is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I would say that 99% of all coaches, they want to win every game. Mm-hmm. They just do. And I don't understand the narratives that get built with certain quarterbacks where the first tweet I read was that the Colts are failing Anthony Richardson as an organization. Now, this came at the time of his benching when he had 9 turnovers in 4.5 games, and he was completing 44% of his passes. Now, we cannot revise history, go back and be like, oh, well, Anthony Richardson didn't deserve to get benched. He was playing horrendously.
Horrible.
He was
Historically horrible.
awful. And there were certain games when you're like, he doesn't even look like an NFL quarterback. He looks like a tight end that they have put at quarterback that have some semblance of quarterback ability in his past. Like when you see the position players that go pitch on the mound in a 21-5 game in baseball, it's like these guys have no business being on the mound. That's what Anthony Richardson looked like at certain times. Now, credit to him on a massive win today. That was a big game. It was a big game for him to come in. He played exceptionally. He played like the way you want to. That's his peak right there. His peak is to complete 55 to 64% of his passes. His peak is to be able to use his legs effectively. His peak is to make great plays down the field because he has a huge arm. Like this is the Anthony Richardson, but him being benched is not some organizational failure. It's that they have to win these games. And with Anthony Richardson, the most important thing is not to break this kid out of his confidence and let him just continue to play so badly. Sometimes you got to give people a wake-up call. And sometimes you got to sit them for a few games and be like, look, like this is going to be good for you in the long term. I predicted right away that he was going to be the starter at least one more time this season. And if not, I was guaranteeing that he'd be the starter for 2025. They were not giving up on Anthony Richardson by benching him. They didn't.
No.
The Panthers did not give up on Bryce Young by benching him. He needed to sit down. And I said it, and I got mocked for the clipboard comment that I made. It's like he needs more clipboard time. He needs to hold the clipboard and watch Joe Flacco go out there for 4 or 5 games, and then go out there in a situation where he's got to perform at a better level. The Colts are probably not expected to make the playoffs this year. There's not an expectation on Shane Steichen or Anthony Richardson to come out and blow the doors off everything right now. They're coming along to help him develop the best they can. They have a really good receiver now. Josh Downs, that dude is special. He is something out there in Indianapolis right now.
And Alec Pearson, and they have a camaraderie there.
Pittman is almost taking the back seat to those guys because they get open. They know how to get open. They have good hands. Josh Downs, the playmaker, like I don't know how good he's going to be, but he's clearly the best guy there in Indianapolis right now. Right now. Get this guy at tight end. Get him somebody that he has a good safety blanket for. Jonathan Taylor is still out there who's really good. Like this is the team is primed for him to be successful. And if they just add a few more pieces to it, it wasn't the end of Anthony Richardson's career in Indianapolis. This had to happen. And we've been spoiled recently with guys like CJ Stroud coming in and just lighting it up as a rookie. We've been spoiled with Brock Purdy as a rookie doing what he did. We've been spoiled with a lot of different things that we've seen over the last few years that made us think that any guy is going to be able to come in here. There's a different pathway to all these guys. There's a much different pathway to all these guys. Penix is sitting behind Kirk Cousins for until at least in the middle of next year, most likely. JJ McCarthy, if they bring Sam Darnold back, that Vikings team is 8-2 right now. Would you blame the Vikings if they franchise Sam Darnold and let him come back and play one more year while they still get JJ McCarthy ready, who's only 21 right now? Yeah, like these things right now, these are necessary pathways for these guys that need to develop and grow. And it's not always going to work out. It's not always going to be the best decision for them. These teams miss. These teams make poor decisions. But right now, this was the most necessary thing for Anthony Richardson, and he came out and played exceptionally well. Now, that's not to say he's probably not going to play this way every single game from here until the end of the season, but it's a good experience to be like, you are not infallible, and you are not above being benched because you're the starting quarterback and we drafted you 4th overall. Yeah. This is necessary for your development, for you to sit down and be like, look how crazy you were playing here. Now let's get you settled down.
And we've seen right now, you've seen teams be able to move on from quarterbacks now. So it's not like the Jamarcus Russell days or stuff like that. So that's how it is. So that's part one. That's part one of the signal caller. With myself and Solo Lopez. So we'll be right back with the rest of it. Where we talk about some quarterbacks who may possibly be drafted by the Raiders here on the show. Welcome back to the Signal Caller here, Dwayne Douglas and Solo Lopez. So let's talk about Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, and Carson Beck. Let's start with Beck because I know for a fact I like Carson Beck more than you do. Um, but we are off of his best game. That was his best game. Against Tennessee, he used the ball.
Yeah.
He looked very fluid in that game, and he even had a. I think he has more. While he's not a statue back there, he can make some plays. With his legs, he scored a touchdown with his legs in that game. What are the pros and cons just off the prelims? Halfway through the season, or actually towards the end of the season with Carson Beck as they get to bowl season for the Georgia Bulldogs.
I think that when things break down and they're not playing as they should as a unit, I think that's when Carson Beck starts to take a step back. I think his creativity off script needs a lot needs help. I think when he is asked to put the game a little bit more on his shoulders, I think he struggles with that. I think he struggled with that this year. They've been losing to teams they have no business losing to with the team that they have, and a lot of that is because Carson Beck has been playing really, really poorly, and it's almost like playing a game of college football 25 when you get down to a team that you shouldn't be down to, and you start panicking and you start making the wrong reads, you start making the wrong passes, you start making the wrong decisions on the situation. It almost feels like Carson Beck is doing that kind of stuff where he's not, I don't want to say he's not built for it, but he hasn't played like he needs to play when those games get really down and dirty and you start getting into a rock fight and you start playing really poorly. And I honestly think for his stretch of games that he has played himself out of the first round. Now, I know a lot of people don't agree with me. I know there's people that say that he's clearly by far and away the third guy. I don't necessarily think, I just don't agree with that. I think a lot of people that saw what Carson Beck did without being insulated by the best team in college football, I think it warded a lot of people off. It warded me off. And I think that a lot of that merit, a lot of that hype, a lot of that perspective will shift now to Drew Lar in Penn State, who has the intangible size that you can't teach, who has the athleticism and has the big arm and has those things, but he doesn't have Georgia's team. And I think that that's part and parcel why he's going to probably sneak into that. And there's going to be a lot of, I would say, transfer of the hype, I would say, going into the off season, and we'll see how the combine goes and how the rest of the season goes. But I think that Carson Beck has played himself out of the first round due to his play, and I think that it's a big deal when you don't necessarily have everything that you have had up to that point in college football, and you have played as badly as you have down the stretch. Today, Saturday was huge for them. Big win, absolutely what Georgia needed to stay relevant. Yep. But you have put yourself in a position to have to win that game because of how badly you've played this season, and I think it's relevant.
I think having a couple of big losses with Ladd McConkey and losing
Brock Bowers
was huge for him. I just think with the arm strength, with his size, I think that when you get to the combine, it's going to be like, okay, he's taller than I thought. He has a really good arm. He has like the kind of that prototypical, like, side, stuff that NFL scouts like. And I think he has a chance to kind of redeem himself right now, because if they finish hot, then people can say, okay, he fought through the adversity of the moment. And I think that's going to be huge to see if he actually can do that, if he can fight through that, if he can fight through that adversity of that moment. So we'll see. We'll see what happens as far as Carson Beck goes. Like I said, we do our full evaluation when the season's over. But I do think that I'm not gonna, for the third guy, I'm not putting it by.
Excuse me.
Bless you. I'm not putting it by anybody for the third guy, because I think it's gonna be basically, you're gonna be picking, maybe whoever you feel fits what you do at that point.
I don't think there is a definitive third guy.
There isn't. The auditions for the third guy is still there.
I think in the middle of last year, we were very clear who we thought the top three guys were. Yes. And it varied very small. And it was a marginal shift between the top four guys that we had in the Signal Caller last year. This year, I just don't think there's a definitive third guy. I think Beck has played himself out of the first round. I think that Nussmeier has played his way into the conversation. I think
Yep.
Drew Alar is going to have a lot of hype going into that. There's some guys. I think Jalen Milroe is going to have a lot of hype in the first two rounds.
Yep.
Like there are some guys that I think are going to be in the conversation, and it'll be interesting to see who pulls away because aside from like running back, which I think is one of the deepest positions in this coming up in this draft, quarterback is so fluid right now because of how badly I think Carson Beck has played over that last stretch for this season, and so it's opened the door for a lot of these guys who might be able to just come in and be like, "You haven't looked at me all season. Now you should look at me in this situation,
Yep.
and if you do, I'm going to show you exactly why I'm a pro football quarterback."
Yeah, and I do think also too, one of the things that we really gonna have fun with this year is the ability to watch a lot of these guys play in the playoffs. And,
Playoffs.
and some of these playoffs, and the first round of the playoffs was whoever decided to make it the higher seed. I mean, the higher seed gets a home game. I mean, some of these places are going to be a playoff game and Happy Valley,
Yeah.
a playoff game, at Georgia. I mean, it's going to be some of these scenes are going to be incredible to see.
Imagine if Colorado gets a home game.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I mean,
Imagine what that's going to be like.
hey, it's gonna be crazy. I mean, like
Yeah.
literally admissions have been through the roof.
Yeah.
Ever since Dion has got there. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. But I do, like I said, I like Beck a little bit better than Solo does. A lot more. I just think he's going. I think when it's all said and done, he'll be a first round quarterback. But he has to end. I think ending the season with a strong push will definitely help him as far as that goes. Shedeur Sanders, and again, I'm gonna say this. Listen. At the end of the day, like for his father, I will definitely be the first one to say, like, I just did not see it. I didn't see it, but he's a really dynamic, winning head coach,
Yeah.
and that team is, and part of it is recruiting because he's getting big time players to come, the big time skill position players to come. They're better defensively. He's offensively, they score, they score in a lot of different ways. And they can run the football a little bit. I mean, but it all goes through Shedeur, and I think
Yeah.
Shedeur is having a solid season. I don't think he's not, in my mind, an elite athlete like his father was, but he has moxie. He can move a little bit. Like, I'm not saying he is Burrow, but he has like a little bit of that. Like, I can get away when I need to get away to throw the
Yeah.
football to a receiver to make a big play. He does that time and time again. Whether it's Hunter or Webster or whatever. I mean, the guy, they really do a good job of that.
Born.
So I think he and Ward are like a just a tie right now for
Yeah.
first place. I mean, I hope it's not a troll, because Raider Nation is really looking at those tweets as if he wants to come to the Raiders.
Thank God, every loss.
Every loss.
Yeah.
I mean, after every loss the Raiders have, if it's good a timestamp, it's like right after the loss every time.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But we thought about Shedeur, because I really think that he had, like I said, I think the footwork, the ability to throw the ball in tight spaces. I think he has a lot of. I think he's probably a B plus arm, not like a Herbert arm, whatever. But like again, like if you're really accurate, for the most, not in most cases, not in the elite level, but in most cases you can get through games being really accurate, and not have that A plus arm.
I think his decision making has improved dramatically from last year. I think being under duress as much as he was last year, it was tough to really evaluate what he was doing with the ball, why he was doing it with the ball, and if he understood what he was doing with the ball at certain times. This year, I think he's way more comfortable being under pressure. He going through that last year. I think this year he understands his fundamentals. He understands his progressions. He understands a lot more of what's required of him to make a good play and be creative outside the pocket when the play does break down. Just go to the Hail Mary as an example. Yeah. I think that's going to be played on basically every single of one of his highlight tapes moving forward. Him rolling out to his left and finding the one man he could possibly throw to in that situation and putting the ball on him almost perfectly on a rope at that for the Hail Mary victory. It's just, I mean, you look at situations like that and you think that guy is a pro quarterback. He understands what he's doing out there. I think I would still, if I given the choice, I'd still would take Cam Ward because I think his poise in the pocket is just uncanny, and I
Yeah,
love the way he plays in the pocket and under duress. But Shadur, it's very clear Shadur Sanders has the best I'd say mechanics in the out of this draft class right now.
yeah,
I really really looks like he's been trained to play quarterback and coached to play quarterback since he was like a kid. That's what it
yeah,
feels like to me. It feels like a guy who has been given one position to play, and this is going to be your position no matter what. And it feels
yeah,
like that when he throws the ball. It feels like that when he with his arm mechanics, his footwork, his decision making. It just looks like that in that situation. Whereas with Cam, it doesn't necessarily feel like he's been throwing the ball, as long or throwing the football as comfortably. And it looks like his arm angles have adjusted ever so slightly to the point where he's almost not as fundamentally sound as we would like him to be. And we're hoping that he can get coached up to be in that situation. But in terms of Shadur, I went into it with Cam Ward being the number one quarterback in college football. Shadur has really, really closed the gap in that. I think that I would really, really like to see how this season ends. I'm excited to see if Colorado makes the playoffs and what they do in the playoffs and what Shadur Sanders does in the playoffs. They both should be in the playoffs.
yes.
If I,
Yeah,
from here
I
on
believe
out,
so. I believe so. I believe
yeah,
so.
Miami should be in the playoffs, but Colorado just has to beat, I think, one more team, and they'll
Yeah,
be in. So I think that's necessary for us to really get a good evaluation on these two guys. Maybe one pulls away from the other drastically when we get to the playoff time, but for me specifically, I really, really have been very, very, very impressed with Sudir, much more so than I was last year, much more so than during the offseason when a lot of that talk was going on. He just came out and he's backed everything up basically.
yeah,
And a lot of the polarizing, personality stuff between him and his dad, a lot of the stories that we had in the offseason, none of that matters now.
no,
Because right now what they're doing is they're trying to play for a playoff spot, taking over a team that was a one-win team, 3 years ago. I mean, it's one of the most impressive turnarounds we've ever seen. And it's
yeah.
because of the coaching and it's because of Shadir Sanders.
2 years ago, USC Caleb Williams played Colorado in the Coliseum. I'm at the game, and I'm saying to myself, I'm looking at Colorado, and I'm saying to myself, my lord, this is the worst team in Division One. Like, honest to
Mm,
God, like, I mean, they were really that bad. I mean, they were terrible. And to see them go from where they were there to 4 wins to to um
8 right now.
to 8 right now, it's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy, and they have a chance to go do the whole thing now. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. I think Shador can play in multiple offenses, but I think with Cam Ward, I really would. I think the way he likes to move, the way he likes to do kind of play quarterback, I think 100% he needs to go to a Shanahan McVay type offense. I really think because it would allow him to move a lot without having to sit in the pocket and then hold the ball and move all over the place. And then
Yeah.
it would give him defined reads. He can get rid of the football. I think that would be like the best spot for him. What are your thoughts about Cam?
I'm higher on Cam Ward than you are, I think, in terms of
No, we're the
the
same.
difference.
We're the same. I
We're
like
the
him.
same. Oh, okay.
Make your point. Make your point. Go ahead. Make your point.
Yeah,
Sorry.
in terms of where I think he can play, I think he's very adaptable, and I don't necessarily think that he's going to be scheme proof because I think very few quarterbacks are. But I think that he can play. I think that if you give him the capacity to have to throw the ball a lot, in that, I think he's going to be successful in that. I think his decision making alone and his calm in the pocket, regardless of where he goes in next year, I think it's going to give him the ability to be fluid in a lot of the different schemes that he does run. I think both these guys are going to need to be protected by the run game early. But I think that because their decision making is on a higher level than basically every other quarterback in college football, I think that will separate them, both of them, to be more ready for the pro style offenses. And I think that's definitely what what separates Cam from a lot of the other guys. This is one of the reasons why I loved him so much, staying for a year. We made our signal caller episode the
We
day
talked about
he
that. Yeah.
yeah, we talked about that the day that he declared, and we're like, oh well, we thought this was a mistake. We think that he should stay in college football for one more season. And we made our signal caller episode thinking he's still going to be a or second round pick. But if he stayed, it would be to his benefit. We think that he'd be a lot better going into next year. Lo and behold, we uploaded the video, and 12 hours later, he transferred to Miami. And we were like, well, we got to cut that video. But now this is the best case scenario for him. And now look at it. He's going to be a top 5 pick this year.
Yeah.
He might even be the number 1 overall pick this year,
Mm-hmm.
depending on who gets the pick. So it's just a thing where I believe that his development is essential. It's been key to Miami's success. I think his in terms of his scheme or where he fits best on. I really want to see what it looks like to give him the football, to throw it as many times as he can, just to see how his decision making and how efficient he can be with the football. Because I think he's going to be an efficient passer. I think his decision making is going to be good, and I think his turnovers are going to be low. That's what I think about him. I think that he's going to be fluid in these systems.
I think one thing they both do is they hold the ball just a little bit too long. Where in the NFL you won't be able to, but like I said, that's something where the right situation. I mean, Dion's gonna make sure he goes to the right situation because Dion has already said if you want my son, I mean, he's not letting him go anywhere. So it's gonna be that's one thing you have to deal with. I'm not gonna sit there and say that's a horrible thing because I think the Mannings did their thing and they wanted him to go to New York and he went to New York. So I mean, it is what it is. So I'm not I'm not crazy. I'm not gonna say that's good or bad, but it is what it is. If it's your kid, like you want to go to the best situation. If you have a control over it, he has control over it. I think that
we'll see. We'll see if he has control over it.
He does.
If it happens, I will eat all the crow on it. But I just don't know. Don't.
So do you think that if Cleveland calls and says I'm picking you, and they don't want to go to Cleveland, you think he's going to Cleveland regardless?
I think Cleveland is just hard headed enough to see how that situation unfolds. I think a team like Carolina will fold. I think it's going to matter. I think it's going to depend on the organization. I mean, even Carolina might, like David Tepper's he's a hard head too. Maybe he just says, you're going to play for us or you're not going to play for anybody. Like we're going
to hold your rights for all these years.
Yeah, because
we have Bryce Young anyway.
The way it works now is that these guys aren't making $72 million right out the gate anymore. They're not making that kind of money. You're on a structured salary. The salary cap allows you to make these types of mistakes and hold these types of situations and gives the organization the leverage in these situations now. So I think it's probably part and parcel of why we haven't seen it yet since the rookie scale was implemented. I think in 2011, I think is when it was, whenever it was. But since the rookie scale has been implemented, you haven't even really heard of anything like this happening in that regard. So I don't know. I will have to see it and see how it unfolds.
You're skeptical of the fact of the Manning thing.
I'm very skeptical of it. I'm very skeptical that players can get away with that now with the new rookie scale, the rookie wage scale. I think organizations will hold the rights hostage now because owners have just been given so much more power over the course of the franchise tag, the transition tags, all of the stuff that allows these players to not have as much leverage anymore. And they're just not getting traded for those kind of packages anymore. You know what I mean? I think Diggs was traded for not only a first rounder the first time, but traded for a second rounder the second time he was traded. That you're just not seeing that kind of stuff anymore. Devontae Adams went for a conditional third. Like you're just not seeing that type of leverage right now in the NFL. And it was there for a little bit because of the player empowerment of the NBA have given a lot of these players like, I don't want to play here anymore. But you can't do that when you're locked into a contract anymore. And a lot of the time it's just you're not going to get the trade package and you're not going to get the haul for these organizations that they want. And in that regard, it lessens the power and the leverage that the player has. I don't think a lot of these teams care about players holding out anymore. Like, I don't think Jerry Jones cared that CeeDee Lamb was going to hold out. He paid him anyway. You know what I mean? And it's like he paid Dak. He's going to pay Michael Parsons. So I don't know. I'm very skeptical of the situation. I don't think that there are many organizations that Dion would just likely just flat out say no. And even if they're trying to force their way to the Raiders might be bad enough anyway to where they have that opportunity. I hope they do. I hope it is a situation where they try to force them to the Raiders. But the problem is, I don't want the Raiders to have not only have to lose all year this year, but then in turn have to give up some massive haul
Yeah.
because they have the fourth overall pick and not the first. And then Shadir Sanders and Dion are trying to force their way to the Raiders.
Yeah, I just
That's a bad look.
yeah, what obviously what I mean what the best case scenario is they just draft him and
Yeah,
without having to move any assets because
yeah.
I don't want to give any assets for anybody. I just want to
The
just
Raiders
draft.
are not good enough to give up that kind of
Yeah,
haul
yeah,
in
we
order for
need
them
yes,
to change the fortunes of their. And we always harp on it. We have to get a quarterback. We have to
yes,
get a
yeah, like a
franchise
quarterback,
quarterback.
yeah,
The show's called the Signal Caller. We have to get a quarterback for the Raiders.
yes,
But in this situation, if they get the fourth overall pick, and you have the Browns, the Jaguars, and whoever else is there, the Panthers or whatever that are in the top three, two of those teams, and you could even make the argument Jacksonville might even consider it, will take quarterbacks.
Would you
We'll likely need one.
if 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 they were trying to negotiate a price and then like somebody in the front office says, you know what, fuck it, take Alar, take Nussmeyer, or take Beck, take another guy because I don't want to give up assets.
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that, or would you want to get one of those top two guys?
I mean, I really want one of those top two guys. And if we're being 100% honest, I wanted one of the six guys last year badly.
Yes, yeah, very
And
much so, yeah.
this is the situation. Now, this is what we talk about. This is why you have to go get your guy right here, right now. Because now there's not six quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round in this year's draft. There's
No,
just not. It's
it's
not
not.
going to happen.
It's not.
We're having trouble finding who the third guy is right now, and we're almost all the way through the regular
Last
season.
year, it was like who's the sixth guy, right?
Who's the sixth guy? Who's going to be the sixth guy in the
Yeah,
first round? We both settled on Bo Nix. We both decided, or you had, I think, one more person. I think you had McCarthy after him.
yeah,
I think in your top six. But we had interchangeable guys right then and there. But for you and me, we both settled on those last two guys were going to be first round picks regardless.
yeah.
We had known that basically before we even started the Signal Caller series. And so this year we're in a situation now where we're not like that. We're not even remotely close to that. Now, by bypassing last year, and don't get me wrong, I said Brock Bowers is a good player, but it's a bad pick because no generational first round,
Tight
first ballot
end.
Hall of Fame tight end
Yeah,
has ever led that team to the Super Bowl without a quarterback. It just
yeah,
doesn't happen.
yeah,
The gap between the impact of a quarterback can have versus the impact of almost every other skill position, actually every other skill position in the entirety of the NFL, even if that player is a first ballot Hall of Famer, is substantial. It's gargantuan. The impact of a quarterback, even a Pro Bowl quarterback, is more so than a generational talent at whatever position you want to say. It just is. I
yeah,
don't know what to tell you. Joe Thomas was a first ballot Hall of Famer. He was a, however many time All Pro for the Browns. They could not get the quarterback. They draft Baker Mayfield. They win a playoff game within 2 years. It's just the nature of the position and the nature of the league. And so it's really tough for me to see the Raiders' possibilities and outlooks now, knowing that there's 5-6 teams that are going to probably trying to get one of these two quarterbacks.
yeah.
And if the Raiders just steal one of these 3 or 4 games coming up, or one of their 2 of these games, they're going to play their way out of a quarterback position just like they did last year. And it's just going to be a massive disaster again, except now the pool goes from here to here because you don't have the many talents and the many arms available to you now. Now you're going to have to figure out if Sam Darnold's going to be available, if you missed out on the first top 2 guys, or even if you're right and Carson Beck is drafted and the Raiders aren't able to get him either.
Yeah.
Then what do you do? Well, I guess we'll just wait till next year. We'll just wait till the next year. It's like, come on.
Yeah, and then in this game tonight, it looks like the Chargers are going to win the game, and the Chargers winning doesn't help the Raiders because it hurts the Raiders because for some reason the draft is strength of schedule.
Yeah.
And for some, so if you play tougher teams for some reason, whatever. But end of the day, I mean, the Chargers look like they're going to win this game, and we kind of needed the Bengals to win this game in order for the high draft pick. But like I said, they're going to be very high because the Raiders, they're just so bad offensively, and they're so bad. They're so bad on both sides of the ball. But I think offensively, they're going to really struggle to score
Yeah.
down the stretch here. So they're going to be. I mean, I think 2-15 is really it's possible, man. This game was a game where I thought maybe they could, they catch my Miami sleepwalking, but it's teams are getting when you get to late November around Thanksgiving, teams are looking for playoff stuff, so they're not here to fuck around.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're not. So when once you early in the season, you might get an upset like the Raiders upsetting the
The Ravens.
could you imagine the Ravens are not in first place because the Raiders beat them?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is
It's bad.
pretty bad. So it is what it is. So first episode of Signal Caller of this season off season coming up here. We got anything else on these quarterbacks before we go?
Know that I'm so desperate for the Raiders to get one. And I just really hope that they can put themselves in position to do it. Because I mean, how many more off seasons can we say the same thing? And how many more? I mean, we said this last year.
Yeah.
Last year was the year to get a quarterback, and they missed, and now they put themselves in a bad position because they were going to be bad regardless this year.
Yeah.
And now they might just not be bad enough if we're being 100% honest. Even if they're a 3 or 4 win team, they just might not be bad enough.
The one thing, and it came a year too late, but the one thing I will say is that at the very least, I never heard the owner say he's here to help us get a quarterback. I never heard him utter the word we need a quarterback before, so that's progress. And then maybe those conversations with Tom Brady was like Tom was like, "Yo, dude, what are you doing? You need a fucking quarterback." So
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Maybe we should discuss that.
Well,
The rumor of Tom Brady.
We'll save that for next episode. We'll say
All right.
it's a long off season, so we'll say
It is.
we gotta say so. We'll talk.
And we're in the off season right
Yeah.
now. Make no mistake. We're in the off season right now.
So next show will be we'll talk about the Tom Brady situation and why the Raiders will have a tendency to in their front office to get people who need on the job training.
We'll talk about what the fuck is happening with our organization.
Yeah, so talk about the Brady stuff, and then we'll talk about some other quarterbacks in the draft, Drew Alar and let's see, and Nussmeyer and those guys like that. As
and Jalen Milroe, the next guy.
As we kind of jump into it. So, all right, folks, thank you for supporting the show, and we will see you next time. Peace.